All right, cool. So welcome to the workshop. We're going to go over a couple things, mostly four different components of things that I found helped me climb, and also just a bit of comparison stuff, seeing where people, including myself, were in Crusader and the differences I see now. The four main bits are going to be things that I referred to as like internal. These are things that are fully within your control, things that really help yourself just go over your own improvement. And then there's going to be a couple tools that build on top of that. These are very basic things. Lessons that coach has specifically taught me, mantras, etc. Things that constantly I engage with right now and remind myself, especially when I screw up. And then lastly, probably the spiciest stuff. That's the differences I've observed in people, in either my opponents, my teammates, or my own build and skill. Any questions you want to ask, feel free to ask them into the workshop channel questions. I will be looking at those when context appropriate. If I feel like the question will get answered later, I will be answering it later, and we will go about it as best as I can. So, where is the?
Sorry, can I just say that
Yeah.
we actually can't type in the workshop channel? Like it says that we don't have. Where is
Yeah,
the
you
channel?
Here. I'm
There is
typing
a
in it
new
now.
workshop questions channel that
It's
is
right
linked
underneath
Oh,
it.
right
Yeah, there
underneath
you
oh,
go.
I see. Okay, thank you very
Mhm.
much. Still don't
So,
see it, but I will find it.
so starting with the internal stuff, the biggest thing, and this is always the most complex, is like mindset-oriented things. There's going to be a couple of examples here from rock climbing, which is where I learned a lot of this stuff, and just applied it to basically everything, including video games. Basically, there's a couple of things to understand. One thing is like a lot of people get caught up in their rank, um, whether it be ego or people comparing themselves, etc. It's like the rank is just a snapshot of where you are at the present, and it doesn't demonstrate where it demonstrates where you're at. You don't necessarily deserve to be lower. You don't deserve to be better. Just it's where you're at right now, and it's a very superficial thing. So it's often better. It is just straight up better to ignore it and treat the ranked time for learning, because like you basically can choose. You can go into a game and try to do these three things at once, but it's often very hard to balance them. And that's have fun, win, and learn. Well, if you're aiming to have fun, let's say you want to pick Ember Spirit and build E-Blade Dagon, I think when you have a basic grasp of Dota, you understand that's bad, and if you're doing that, you're clearly goofing off, which means you're neither winning or learning probably. If you're going in to win, you're going to be playing a hero you have like 300 games on, and you're going in like aiming for just plus 30. And like if that's your only goal, then you're going to be looking. There's going to be a lot of things outside of your control, and you're very likely going to tilt at the least at a lot of things because like if you're looking to win, you're trying to predict things and you're reading into the future and that's taking you out of the present. Learning is going to be your best friend. It's cheesy. It is very cheesy to state this stuff, but like if you embrace making mistakes, like the only way you learn stuff is by making mistakes. If you succeed all the time, that means you already knew what you were doing. There's a reason why the 10,000 hours expert saying exists. So by far, every time you play, you almost always want to go for learning. Fuck winning, fuck losing, it doesn't matter as long as you learned something. A lot of people. Next thing that I find very useful, mindset-wise as well, is your teammates and your opponents are your equal. You're not better or worse than them. There's a reason they're the same rank as you. Um, and do your best. And like whether you're gonna mute them or try to work with them, it's not worth blaming them. They're in the exact same boat as you are. Um, Everybody's in the same cruise ship. So on any given day, sometimes you're going to be better than them, sometimes you're going to be worse than them. Each day is going to be a bit of a difference. These teammates are not in your control. And because they're not in your control, it's not worth the emotional and mental effort to fix their mistakes, to poke at them. These are people that are just in the boat with you and you can't decide if they're wearing a life. You can't force them to wear a life jacket. It's not worth your time. And then lastly goes down to winning or losing. We talked about this briefly. And like BSJ summed this up way better than I used. I used to use a mantra similar to his. Now I'm just straight up using his because it's better phrased. Winning and losing is not in your control. So playing your best and playing to learn is in your control. Like because it is a team game at the end of the day. As much as we think we can win every game, there are four other people in the game. You are 20% of that team. That's it. That's a very small amount. So like focus on what is in your control. You'll probably play a lot more relaxed. because when something's out of your control, there's nothing you can do about it, and you're going to be spending energy. You're going to be spending less energy on those things and more energy on yourself and on your own improvement and on your own fun. It's a lot more fun when you can see when you're using what you can control. Any questions on that stuff?
How do you how do you feel about smurfing then? I know you said that like everyone's in the same boat, everyone is the same rank as you. Obviously that doesn't obviously work if there's smurfs in your game, either on your team or on the opponent.
So in that sense, everybody encounters Smurfs.
Mhm.
So that's one of those things that like winning and losing isn't going to be in your control. So if the enemy team has a Smurf, you can never change that. There is no way for you to change that.
Mhm.
So like in a game like that, it's gonna suck being stomped, but there's always something you probably could have done better.
Oh, for
Or
sure.
like, so I'm Smurfs aren't necessarily the best thing to run into, but
Mhm.
sometimes that Smurf's also gonna be on your own team. Like it goes both ways, and that's why I stick to that. Everybody's in the same boat because everybody in your rank is also gonna have Smurfs, whether it's you
Yeah.
or them.
Okay. That's fair.
Um, there you go. I see Yuka typing. I will wait. But yeah, like I mean, Smurfs there's a lot of external factors that a lot of people go towards, and it's because it's I don't want to call it easy, but like humans are inherently negatively biased, and a lot of the stuff fights that, and that's why it's hard. That's why not that many people do it, and it takes a lot of effort. For me, it took like 3 years to keep a lot of the stuff, and even then, I still tilt and all sorts of other stuff. It's called being human. Like there's a balance of being hard. You have to find that balance of being both easy and hard on yourself,
Well, and I
because
don't think necessarily that there's as many Smurfs as people think there are. I think people just sometimes pop off and then they're automatically labeled a Smurf,
well, yeah, that's
right?
like that's that negative cognitive bias that's built
Mhm.
into our biology, and that just influences everything we do. Would you say Smurfs are less Okay, would I say Smurfs are less influential since there's often less investment in winning? Lots of cases of easy tilting. Um, I mean, I would agree with that, but like I think that still ties into like anything regarding Smurfs is outside of your control. So like most discussions around them just aren't worth that much time unless you want to talk about the morals and ethics of it, which is not what we're here for. Um, like a lot of people, as I said, including myself, you want to find that external factor, something else to blame other than yourself, because it feels bad to blame yourself. It's part of why fighting games are unpopular. So, yeah, yeah, I don't think Smurfs are like they're just another fish in the ocean that you're playing with. Like, I don't think about winning and losing that much, although I know I can tilt sometimes, and but that's like almost any human. It sucks to lose, but at the end of the day, that happens sometimes. So I'll move from there into tools. This is for the data geeks. This can be quite fun. Um, so back when I started to really want to improve last fall, I started building not necessarily a spreadsheet, but I would track what I learned from each game, just write it down or type it out, and like that just builds into your learning and ingrains it. It's boring, but like here's the thing: you played a game of Dota, you can take like 60 seconds to say, well, maybe I should have built this item instead in this matchup. Boom. Like that's going to be nice and ingrained into your brain very easily, and it goes a long way, I find. Um, it's just dialogue at the moment. I can stream the gameplay that I have running, so if people want some sort of visual fun stuff, because I there's a reason why the recording has this going with the Dota, so I should probably put it on stream as well. Um, but like finding some way to track what you're learning, to constantly refer to like your past is very useful, especially if you go like, well, I know I played this earlier. I don't remember what I'm supposed to do. Let's say a week ago you did Timbersaw into Ursa as a very classic example for myself. You can go right back to your notes and remember exactly what you need to do. And I find that it's very useful. It just ingrains it into your brain, ingrains it your into your future. So it's basically journal of sorts. Open Dota, Dota 2 Pro Tracker, all these other bits, or all these other data sites do go a long way. Knowledge in Dota gets outdated pretty fast. It's worth checking in on your main heroes that you play and see if there's anything spicy going on, especially since it can help things be more fun. It's like I think Diffusal Ursa is a good example. Ursa's not always the most fun hero for a lot of people, and having different build varieties is part of what's fun. So if you can see people doing specific builds or different setups, different skill builds, is going to you're going to learn, you're going to become a better player from it, and B, you're going to be able to play your hero in different ways and create that variety. That can help you engage in your learning, engage in having fun, and at the core of Dota, like it's a game. It's supposed to be fun. Um, Learning is secondary, and then winning, in my opinion, is tertiary. But these things will help if you're also wondering about any matchups, anything like that. They're really useful tools. Open Dota has a specific tracker for every hero, where it's only 7k MMR and up that you can compare every matchup. Like I thought, for example, Slark was good into Pugna, just based on my own thinking and my own critical thinking. I was wrong because I was able to go check the data. And Dota 2 Pro Tracker does similar stuff. It also enables you to find some more, like with the item choices, it does enable that critical thinking to see why did they do this, and you can bring this stuff to any coach, and they can probably help you, and maybe they'll learn something about it. Then lastly would be warm-up stuff. It's boring. A lot of the stuff, like, it sucks as a core player to go into the last hit trainer for like 2 to 3 minutes before you go to ranked or before you go try hard. Um, it goes a long way. So in almost everything you do, warm up goes a long way just because it's like going into first gear in a car. When you can't go from you can't go from neutral to second and third. Shit'll break. It's not the same with your brain, but often starting that first gear, so the warm up, really helps engage the right parts of your brain. And in the case of Dota and stuff, like just your muscle memory comes back that much faster. For supports, since you don't get to last hit as much, you could use it just to warm up stuff. But I would say instead take that same amount of time to pick a goal or pick something you're going to focus on in that game, whether it be getting better pull timing, whether it be being more efficient with your stacks, um, or just like have a quick dialogue with someone. I do think it's a bit harder to warm up as a support. But in general, I think for that, because it's a lot more about map movement and that first 10 minutes, um, it's really important to set like some sort of goal for that game and to have some sort of focus. Kyndey, could you please link the specific area in Dota Buff? Yeah, I'll link. It's for Open Dota and Dota 2 Pro Tracker. So Dota Buff tracks everybody. Open Dota and Dota 2 Pro Tracker track 7 and 8k up only, which I personally find much more useful. Um, so, any questions regarding the tool stuff? I see Jewel typing. I'm not sure if this will be a meme or not. But in general, I find a lot of this stuff helps. This is would never be. Okay, are you gonna finish the question then? Or are you just typing for the sake of typing? I mean, yeah, my card can go from neutral to second as well. But that's besides the point. Most cards can't. Um, so from there we'll go into what I find the most fun stuff, and this is like lessons from coaches and things that really stick with me as not necessarily mantras, but they're constantly recurring. Um, Basically, I've had three main people coach me. Um, Cobra, who unfortunately doesn't have the best reputation in the server, but he is honestly a good coach. If you can handle someone being a bit more tough love. Journey and Brother, and each of them has taught me different stuff that sticks with me. Brother was the first person to coach me, and one of the biggest things he taught was, and I hear his voice literally almost every time, click people. In the lane, start your trades by clicking people. And like whether you're favored or not in the lane, it's worth just to start something. Your health and mana are resources. Use them. If you're at 100% health and 100% mana, you are actively wasting, like let's say, and you have 2 HP regen per second, you are actively wasting 2 HP. You are actively wasting 1 mana per second. And like so start stuff. People often don't know how to respond to someone going aggressive on them, and especially if you start trades with auto attacks, you save your spells for later. and you get to decide when a trade ends, or you can use those spells to finish them off. I think we've all had that moment where we walk up to somebody, stun them, keep clicking them, and they just walk away. If you inverse that, where we just click, 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 and then stun them, like they're dead at that bit. So starting any trade and just clicking people, seeing how they react in the lane to get a feel for how they play, which is more advanced and something that I'm not that good at, and just, but more importantly, using it to just save your spells for later goes a long way. This one is from Journey, and we've literally gone over this multiple times, and I still screw it up because it's just not always the easiest thing to do. Think about when the next fight is going to be, and make sure you're ready for it. There's a thing, so basically always be fight ready. So this means if you think a fight's going to occur in a minute or 30 seconds, or let's say you have Arena in the case of this replay coming up in 60 seconds, figure out a salve so that you, or in this case, figure out a clarity so that you're ready for that fight for when it started. Nothing sucks more than having, let's say, Doom or Death Ward off cooldown, and your team says, "Let's go fight," and you have 50 mana. Being fight ready is really important, and this doesn't mean just spells off cooldown. All resources matter. This also goes in the lane, for example. So if you, I forget. I think this was also with Journey. We went over this. If you're level 1 in the lane, I think this is stage. If you're level 1 in the lane, you have one spell, and you have mana for that spell, of course. You're now a one spell hero. If you're level 2, and you still only have one mana for one spell, you are still effectively a level 1 hero, because you only have one spell. And this goes for basically almost all points in the game, and all of your items, etc. So being fight ready is really important. This comes from more so talk workshop questions. Free Cobra. Charlie helped you guys more so than me. Okay, I have a productive question. I will get to the quality of teammates question later. We're going to go over that as the last bit. This is also from dialogue of people, mostly with Journey as well. So basically, a lot of people will often consider their opponents either incompetent, their teammates incompetent, their opponents incompetent, their opponents better than them. That's like mind reading prediction stuff. That is stuff outside of your control, but it is still useful. The way that I would go about it as a way of learning and just testing your limits, assume enemies are incompetent until proven otherwise. Have faith in your team to be competent until consistently proven otherwise. What I refer to as consistently is like if you have something that you're looking for your teammate to do like 3 times and they fuck it up 3 times, well, you're allowed to lose some faith in them. But Dota is at its core a team game, which is the irony of solo queue. And for it to function with your teammates, even in ranked, there needs to be some faith and some trust. So why assume enemy incompetent? If you assume the enemy is always going to be competent, you're never going to push your limits. You're never really going to make that many mistakes, I find. And also, you're not going to see what mistakes they're going to make. Like, respecting your opponent always, thinking they're going to do the right thing, isn't correct. Because sometimes they're not. Force mistakes. If you think they're incompetent, it can help you with your own confidence and help you with your own playmaking and pushing their buttons. And like and as soon as they prove they're competent, you know how they're going to react. You know they will punish you. Play accordingly. If they're not going to punish you, go greedy. Do it. Keep pushing them. And then lastly, and this is from Cobra, I think a lot of coaches have said this, but Cobra specifically enforced it a lot for me. If someone on your team is being dumb, is being ignorant, etc., don't be a lemur and follow them off the cliff. People talk a lot about the save your buddy kind of syndrome. It's not the easy, as with all this stuff, it's not the easiest thing to do off the bat. It takes practice, but it is not your job to save people's asses. Unless it's your pause one, and even then, if your pause one is being truly idiotic, like, it's not your job to go and save their butt. Just like you need to learn from your mistakes, hopefully your teammates will learn from their mistakes. Because everybody's trying to climb and improve. And some people are going to do it at other rates, but it's not your job to follow people off the cliff. And like, it's also, and in that same sense, it's not worth fighting with other people in ranked. If someone's saying something stupid or someone's calling you out, it's not worth engaging with them and joining them in in whatever toxic conversation they want to have. It takes two to tango for toxicity and people yelling at each other. If they're just yelling into the void and you're ignoring them, whether that be muting or not, it's well worth that time. It's not worth discussing with them about anything. So have confidence in your own play, and if you're making mistakes, have confidence that you'll learn from those. Uh, yeah, I mean with the allies incompetence bit, the thing is like if you're starting right out of the gate, assuming your allies are going to be incompetent and having no faith in them, like that's just going to often be the wrong thing. You're kind of going here with the an enemy's incompetent allies competent thing is you are hoping for the best. It is almost always worth your time to hope for the best. And as soon as the worst shows, then you can adapt to that pretty easily. I find it's more often than not like if you go into a game assuming everybody's going to be shit, you're creating this self-fulfilling prophecy. That's just not worth it. That's just not worth it. Like the mind is very powerful. Reality is what you perceive. It's not necessarily what actually is happening. Like we create what's in front of us a lot of the time. It's very hard to be objective. Our brains are not programmed to be objective. I'm not quite sure what you mean by the more I'd rather match what you described with allies. Um, let's see. So I'm just finishing waiting for Yuka to go through here. And like as I said, this is just what I use. Might be different for other people, but I personally find it very useful to go this way. Ah, match to view. Well, the thing is like I just viewing enemies as always competent. Like it means I'm not going to push myself to make the same mistakes. That's the thing. Allies won't push me to make mistakes, and like I'm not fighting with them. I am with my enemies, and therefore it's worth assuming my enemies are incompetent because that's who I want to punish, right? I'm not looking to punish my allies. I'm looking to work with them. And like it's that's just personally how I go about this stuff. I think you can, if you want to, assume enemies are competent until proven otherwise. But it's the same idea as reining in someone who's overly aggressive as opposed to pushing someone who's passive to be aggressive. I think it's easier to assume your enemies are incompetent and then change your view as opposed to the other way around. Because if you assume they're competent, you'll never actually see their incompetence often. And you might be playing too slow or too passive, etc. I think as you get better at the game as well, though, you can see in their starting items, in their starting skills, whether or not somebody's incompetent, like in the first 30 seconds of the game. Um, Not always the case, but it's definitely something you can see and learn. I see 3 people typing. And I do think it's a matter of opinion. This is, as I said, a lot of this is anecdotally based. No. The thing is, when you're saying don't go too aggro, that's going too aggro is, in my opinion, good. If you're going too aggro, that means you've made a mistake that gives you an opportunity to learn from. And at the end of the day, it is a team game. It is better to have trust in your teammates first and then see them break it than the other way around. Because often if you start with the trust in them, you might build some momentum there that's normally not there. As it's not the easiest thing, I think, especially with anonymous people that you don't understand and like people that you just straight up know that are different every time. They're basically placeholders. It can be hard to have that. And like that's the irony of solo queue. There's a guy named Coach Curtis that did some League content stuff when I was still playing League, and like he would constantly talked about like League is an amazing team game. It sucks that the number one way it's played is as a solo game because it's really hard to treat it as a solo game. I'm gonna move on soon into the fun stuff, the differences I've observed in the players between my ranks. And for that, I'm gonna switch Actually, I'm just gonna leave the Crusader replay on. Switch this over. So this is the stuff that's like Pretty clear takeaways I find from differences between ranks, especially lately some of the stuff. Now that I've been Legend 1 for a while, more so in unranked I've seen this stuff. Um, so, starting with cores, the one of the biggest differences, mostly due to my hero pool being stuff like Timbersaw, Pango, Mars, etc. People buy BKBs in their second and third items. So anybody here who's wants to climb and you're a core player, more often than not, it is worth buying a BKB. There's a reason so many coaches drill it in. There's a reason so many coaches mention it all the time. BKBs win games. The game is Dota is literally balanced around BKB, and you will win a lot more games just by buying it more often than not. If you're having doubts whether you should or not, do it. If it turns out to be a wrong BKB game, like a bad one, you've learned, move on. Next time, don't do it. Easy peasy. But like, there's a reason coaches drill this in so much. So to switch gears into more supports, lately in the early levels, I'd say this started around like higher Archon, but I've definitely noticed it now, especially stacking with some more ancient friends for 80-12. I find myself levels 1 and 2 getting zone. As a pause 3 player. I find a lot of supports are zoning me out levels 1 and 2. In general, both on my team and the enemy team, I see supports being a lot more aggro, a lot more active. Not always, depends on matchups of course, but more often than not, I see them challenging people level 1. Ganking mid at the 4-minute rune. Not always, but often. And that goes back into this trying to be more aggressive and just clicking people. These people have learned when they can and can't be aggressive by doing this consistently, probably. And like, it takes time and understanding, but like, I find supports have just been way more aggressive in understanding how strong they are at levels 1 and 2. I see Journey typing. Like, I can think of a lot of Timbersaw games in particular where level 1 is just somebody clicking me. Whether it's a Shadow Shaman or a CM, she's really far up, and my pause force probably off getting a rune or something, like one of the bounty runes early, and I'm alone. And I don't get to walk up to the wave. It goes a long way. Levels 1 and 2 are really important. I'll go over that one after the differences. I think I'll save that one for the very end bit because that's a really useful one actually. Um, so the one of the and also regarding supports for vision, I see a lot less cliff wards, like way less. Um, the way I would recommend going about vision stuff, and this is the way that I just personally learned, is I went into like friend that's higher MR, like ancient, whatever, went to open Dota, not Dota buff, and looked at their ward map. And you get to see a lot more creative warding, of course, higher MR, because, well, they're better. Duh. But like looking at these other players and what they're doing goes a long way. Open Dota is an incredible tool for stuff like the ward map, etc. It's just a really useful one. But creative vision has gone a long way when I'm playing Pos 5 for tokens. I am no longer getting free XP and free gold off of observer wards anymore like I was months ago. The map spiral. This is something that BSJ talks about a lot, something that Brother also instilled. Um, so I when I was first playing, like coming from League, the offlane towers was the tower I would try to get fairly often, not the first one. And as I've gone higher and higher, and as I've learned, I see a lot more people ignoring the offlane towers. Um, so basically, if it's in your control to not touch those towers, it's worth it. And it's also worth it to be, if it's in your control, to control the enemy jungle when you can. Um, like, we have that river dividing the map, but as the game goes on, that river, if you could take it as a border for territory, it like rotates clockwise, like 45 degrees, and like that becomes a new barrier. And trying to embrace that as best you can, I think, goes a long way. Just trying and trying to visualize that. It's not easy, and it's somewhat team dependent, but anything is better than nothing. And putting in and like trying to understand it goes a long way. The map should naturally spiral. And this is the biggest one that I've noticed, which is, other than the BKB bit, is Roshan. People actually try to take Roshan now. Um, and This is of course a bit more core oriented, but I think if you're a shot, if support that likes to talk to your teammates a bit more, this goes a long way as well. Roshan goes a long way. It's really important. Please take Roshan. I like if I fuck up a team fight nowadays, I do see the enemy team at least try to take Roshan, which is very punishing, very annoying. And vice versa, if we win a team fight, I'm not the one calling for it. I often see someone else calling for it. So yeah, with that, I will go over just any questions that are here. So how do I tilt when you get? How do I not tilt when I get tipped? It depends on the day. Most days I'm not gonna tilt over getting tipped or not. It's my own play that typically tilts me. Uh, the, Basically, if I get tipped or voice lined, I assume I fucked up, and you gotta learn to laugh at yourself in that case. Like if you can't laugh at yourself, especially in a game, especially in a hobby, like I think you're gonna find life in general very hard, and Dota is like very hard. Um, at the end of the day, it's a game. Like you're not earning money doing this. You're not getting a promotion due to this. Like it's supposed to be fun, and if you're thinking like every mistake you make or any time someone pokes at you that they're holding you accountable or something, or that they want you to take it personally, it's like that's not the case. Someone's often they don't know who you are. Nobody knows who you are unless you're with friends, and even then, like a lot of the people here, I don't know your faces. You don't know what my favorite food is. I don't know yours. All that jazz. Like it is anonymous, and more often than not, when people are tipping you, it's like because they themselves feel like they made a good play and they feel like you fucked up. And odds are you probably did fuck up. And if you are going to blame them or something else, it's not worth it. Yeah, Erasier's right. Tips and voice lines only bother you if you're feeling shitty about your own game, or if your ego is pretty big. Like, I find tipping and voice lining when I'm aiming to win, that stuff tilts me more. When I stop caring about winning and just look at my own play and focus on what I can do, when someone tips me, it's like, oh, that's where I fucked up. Um, like I just they're part of the game. I think they're part of every single game. I think it's part of every sport, every esport. Like mental fitness goes a long way. Um, and that being just like anti-tilt kind of stuff. How have your experiences been from communicating items? It's been interesting. As much of a buzzword as interesting can be. When I was first starting to climb from Crusader 2-ish, like I would mute everybody, like everybody. In the last 2 months, I stopped doing that and started muting contextually. And I honestly found it went a long way, especially since I can be a bit of I am naturally a shot caller. Um, and just like if you're playing well or doing well, or somebody else on the mic is having a fun time despite losing, it can really help relieve some of that stress you sometimes feel playing Dota, because we're all human. Like sometimes you are going to be a bit more stretched than usual playing the game, despite it being for fun. Um, and teammates, I'd say, are slightly more communicative. Not by much. Like I think a lot of that comes into people. It's five random strangers on the internet playing a team game together. It's not easy to to do a lot of the team-oriented stuff. Like I think it's if you don't want to communicate with people and you think it's a weakness of yours, I don't think solo queue is a place to practice it. Um, I think if you want to get better at that stuff, if you want to place priority on it, play in more leagues. Um, I pr and hopefully the way I treat communication, someone else reaches out to me more often than not. If somebody talks to me first, I will reciprocate. I'm not someone who typically starts it. And regarding items and target priority, people seem to naturally click on allies slightly more so. If I do see, for example, I have a TA mid and a PA position 1, and I see my PA building a deso after my TA, I will do my best to mention it to them and politely give them some sort of suggestion. I think we all can understand that double deso is not the best idea. And like ultimately, if that PA decides to ignore me, I did what I could. I will move on with playing my best. If we lose the game, oh well. Hopefully we win. But I can't control her going deso or not. I can mention it once or twice. After that, it's not worth my time. Uh, with that, this would be probably done. At Herald, you have. I mean, the thing is, everybody. It depends on what you consider normal. Like, I, everybody, your teammates are equal, whether you're Herald or Crusader. Like, your teammates with the same rank as you, and you're probably neither better or worse than them. Yeah, I think communication can be a very interesting and fun edge, especially like if you're playing something more team-oriented, like a Shadow Demon. And like everybody has different strengths, of course. I think if it's an edge you feel like you have over people, the fact that you are willing to communicate and you're good at it, use it. But unlike, say, for cores, I think every core should practice last hitting. I think every support should, like, once or twice a week, take a brief look at a ward map. And I think, like, if you're really trying to improve, take a quick snapshot of the meta every so often, see what people are doing. Or, like, have a journal. Those are way more important for trying to rank up than it is. You pinged the wrong person. I think those things are way more important than communication because it's hard to practice communication in solo queue kind of stuff. Favorite food that changes like the fucking weather. Um, I would say currently New York style pizza. Currently, I'm a big foodie. I cook a lot of food at my house. I'm like the chef. The way Slacks put it in video, you should expect what you. I don't. You shouldn't go with any expectations. If you're going into something with expectations, you're when things don't turn out that way, you're gonna be mad or you're gonna be upset. Like no expectations is the way to go in. Go in and just adapt to what's happening. Be in the moment. Like it's just not worth it to have expectations. Um, it's hard not to, but like if it doesn't turn out that way, you're not gonna be prepared for what's going on in the moment. Um, so with that, I think we're done. Unless I have more questions. This has been recorded. Yeah. But like, ignore. Oh, right, there was other stuff. Do you use Google? No, I don't. I don't use Google Translate to communicate with teammates. Da, 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 da. Wastelands. Yeah. Da, da, da. Like, I don't know. Tips and voice lines are just part of the game. Um, get coached. Be self-aware. Um, track shit. Like, there's a lot of different ways, but I'm not that good at pause 3. You're also not as bad as you think you are. Like, don't call yourself trash and don't call yourself godlike. Those two things are not worth it. They're too extremes. Just it's hard to, but like, whatever's going on in the moment is worth it. How is the lion doing from this game? Oh, is the da, 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 da. Okay, I think we're done now. Oh, oh yeah. I don't know. I remember bodying the lion in lane, but this is a really good Timber Saw game, so. Um, I think there's two ways of thinking about this, and I'm gonna take what some people could perceive as not toxic, but I do think there are some people who are hopeless. The thing is, it's just statistics. Like there are 600, 700,000 people playing Dota. At least one of those people has to be hopeless. I think telling yourself that though is not worth it. Like I do think if somebody's willing to put in the effort and willing to critically think, that being the big one, goes a long way. Like, and I think a lot of people just get stuck on either thinking they're hopeless or whatever because they start caring too much about their rank and stuff. Where it's like, as much as we like to look towards being a higher rank, you only get there by improving and learning. And if you're looking to win, it's hard to focus on learning, and vice versa. The thing, I mean, there's a lot of people like that. Like, I think one of the things brought up in League commonly was the guy who had by far the most mastery points on a hero called Garen. Like, he was really far ahead. He had more hours in League in general than most pro players. And he was what's referred to as Bronze 5, which is basically like Guardian 1. Like, booting up and playing Dota versus thinking critically while playing are two different things. And, like, If you're really trying to learn and improve, playing 3 matches should exhaust your brain. Like, it's not easy to think critically for like 3 hours straight. There's a reason why school gives you breaks. There's a reason why workplaces should give you more breaks occasionally. Not occasionally, they just straight up should. Like, it's hard to think critically for hours on end. And like Dota matches are long. Dota matches can be very difficult. Like these, we've hear like they talked on the panel about like the panel that the major playing for 36 hours straight. I think for Effie and like it was 26 or something like that for Aoi. But it's like their quality of play halfway through that probably went to trash and they weren't thinking. So if you're looking to improve, quality over quantity for sure. And it's part of why I think everybody can improve. Is like the people who might be perceived as hopeless are probably going about it slightly wrong or have the wrong mindset. A couple other things. Like there's something that is just not quite clicking, and hopefully one day it will click. I know for me, I felt hopeless when I first came back to the game, and for a while. Um, but it's being self-aware and focusing on that critical thinking really helped. Like avoiding autopilot, questioning everything you do. But like questioning everything you do sounds tough. That's because it is. It's mentally tough. It's mentally hard. It's exhausting, and it sounds like a lot of work. That's because it is. A lot of this stuff I think depends on how fast you want to climb. And like you don't have to climb fast. You can spend 1 day a week focusing on climbing, and that's it. I see Cynic's typing. Uh, I didn't spam heroes. I picked a pool of heroes. I picked 3 and eventually expanded into 5 different heroes. So I played Pause 3. Um, and Timbersaw, Mars, Doom, Pangolier, and Snapfire, I'd say were my mains. With DP when she was meta. Um, yeah, Snap 3. Yeah, I was cool with what Jewel was doing. Um, but like I think it depends on your goals. If you want to just win, spam. If you want to learn, make a pool. Like 3 to 5 heroes that are gonna be a bit different. Hopefully that fill different archetypes. But like you have to do that stuff after you figured out what you learn, what you enjoy in Dota. You're not if you don't if someone tells you to play Wraith King all the time just to farm MMR and you don't find Wraith King fun, you're not gonna play Dota. Like it's a game that's supposed to be fun first. Yeah. Right. I think with that, I could. I don't think I'm gonna like the document. Yeah, I stick to a position. Um, I think if you want to improve at Dota, like in general, you first have to you start by picking a hero. Using my own example, using myself. Let's say start with Mars. I learned Mars in roughly let's say 10 games. Then after I've learned Mars, I can use my mental effort to learn Pause 3. Once I feel like I've gotten somewhat decent at Pause 3, I can then learn Dota itself, which is stuff like moving around the map, clicking my enemies to see what their items do. When items are good, vision, when to go Roshan. It's really hard to learn and improve at Dota when you're constantly swapping positions. It's really hard to learn a hero when you're switching heroes all the time. It's building blocks, and it goes a long way. So I think it's really important to have a smaller pool so that you can actually learn Dota, because those universal mechanics, how to move around the map, what towers to push, item spikes, goes a long way. And like, yeah, I played those 3 to 5 heroes, but I can confidently right now pick a lot more than those 5 in most of my games. I choose not to because I want to continue learning Dota, but I could still do pretty well on a lot of other heroes. Does pause 3 set the tempo of the game? That's kind of outside the realm of this workshop. I would say a lot of that's context dependent. That's not necessarily the goal of this. A lot of this was based on my own climb and just trying to give people the same tools I had to others. Because I went from like the same rank as a lot of beginners, which is like Crusader-ish, to Legend 1 fairly fast, and I tracked a lot of that. Um, and a lot of it just stays in my mind, especially the coach lesson stuff. So yeah, I think with that, I'll wrap up the workshop to help enable the get the lobby going. I will take. Let's see. I see 2 people typing. Then after, if there's no question in those things, I will be wrapping it up. My DMs are almost always open. So the recording will be going up on a YouTube channel that I still have to set up because my only YouTube is currently tied to my real life name, which I do not want giving out. So, oh shit, I just realized that there was no Dota audio. There's just me talking because I was alt tab, but it still recorded the Dota audio, whatever. Because I needed to keep Discord open. Do I watch replays outside? Yeah, not super often, but like when I feel like my own replays haven't been that useful lately, or I have questions that I can't answer myself or a coach can't answer, I will go watch a pro replay. Especially for like if I'm struggling on something specific, say like I don't understand how to play Slardar after playing for 10 games, or I feel like I'm doing something wrong, I'll go watch a pro, see what they're doing. It can help a long way, but like watching a pro or watching someone else's replay only works if you're willing to put in that mental effort of critically thinking. You've heard me mention that a lot. That's it's huge. It's the core of learning, right? It's critical thinking. But like if you see Zai, like I'm using my own example. I was watching a Zai replay of him playing Slardar. He was playing the lane really passive, just last hitting. I'm like, huh, this isn't the way I play Slardar. I play like a psychopath. I wonder why he does this. And then as I saw the game play out, I'm like, ah. Slardar need blink. Me going aggro sabotages my own farm because I need blink. And like, what? I came to that conclusion just by watching his stuff, and I think it can be very useful. I think it depends on the person. I think it depends on the goals, but it's certainly just one of the multiple tools in the toolbox.
Middle tower's down on Dire's side.
Oh yeah, of course. I think it's just natural to autopilot. I think it's really hard to fight. I think it's really hard to. I'm not blonde, dude. I think it's really hard not to autopilot. I think we've all, like everybody does it. You do it when you drive, for fuck's sake. And just being aware of when you start autopiloting and doing your best to fix it. It's not easy, but it happens. Like, I don't have much of an excuse out of that one. Just because it's like, depends on how much mental energy you had. Like, did you have a really tough day at work? The odds are you're not going to have the mental energy to critically think and play really well on Dota. And you're probably going to autopilot more.
Dire's top tower isn't looking so great.
Yeah. Galf, I will accept your desires when I move out to BC.
So Dire's top tower is under attack. Dire's lost their top tower. Radiant's middle tower.
Typing, and then I will wrap it up after I receive stuff. Because it is getting bad. I think you have to choose what you go for. Like if you're in a bad, if you're like in a bad mindset, like don't play unranked. Go queue with friends. Play something new. Maybe don't play the main hero you played. Like do something goofy. Like that's why I mentioned earlier. Like when you boot up, like set an intention and stick with that until you feel like you can. Like I will often play 2 ranked games. And then go into unranked and just goof off with friends. Or
if you win this game, I will be very proud. Let's go.
Like, Dota is supposed to be fun, and personally, I find learning and tryharding a bit more fun than the average person. I think, which is part of why I've learned all this stuff. But why is it on fog both teams? Jesus. But yeah, if you're, it's just like there's different modes for a reason. No, like improvement is a mindset. Like. It's a perspective you choose yourself. It's effort that you choose to put in, and you can put it in unranked, you can put it in bot games, you can put it in ranked. Like, it's what you choose. Like for rock climbing, like I can still work on my own technique and my own fitness climbing a difficult climb just as much as climbing an easy climb. They're just working on different things, but it's that mindset and that focus that matters. Not so much the environment I'm doing it in. And it's a choice. That's about it. I think that's a good note to end it on. Alright. Thank you very much, y'all. I will stop. Oh, I see Penjack. That's a new person typing. And I know he arrived later, so I'm curious. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna end it here.